You probably have a can of tuna in your pantry right now, maybe more than one. You bought it because it's affordable, practical, high in protein, and you were told good for you. It's a staple food. It's reliable. It's the food you reach for when you need something fast. What if I told you that the species on the label may not be what is actually in the can, and that the mercury content varies by a factor of 3 depending on the species? Hello everyone, welcome to the Real Food Revolution. With my 30 years of clinical experience, I share my view on the good, the bad, and the ugly to help you make sense of it all and start feeding yourself with joy and confidence again. So fish. Fish is one of the most nutritionally valuable foods on the planet. It is also one of the most complicated food to buy. Before we begin, I need to say something clearly. This episode is not an argument against eating fish. It's an argument for eating it well. The science on this question is not ambiguous. Multiple major risk-benefit analyses, from the Journal of the American College of Cardiology to a joint FAO and World Health Organization expert committee and the Harvard School of Public Health, they both reach the same conclusion. For the general population, the health benefits of eating fish regularly outweighs the risks from mercury or other contaminants. 1 to 2 servings per week of low mercury fish is associated with a 36% reduction in fatal coronary heart disease. That number comes from a systematic review of prospective cohort studies. It's not a supplements company marketing claim, it's the published evidence. The pregnancy data is even more striking, and it's the one that's also the most misunderstood. One of the largest and most rigorous birth cohort studies ever conducted, following more than 11,000 pregnant women, found that women who ate less than 340 grams of seafood per week during pregnancy had children at increased risk of being in the lowest quartile for verbal IQ. Not the mothers who ate more fish, the ones who ate less. So avoiding fish during pregnancy is not the safest choice. In itself, it's a risk. Why? Because DHA, the omega-3 fatty acid concentrated in oily fish, is the primary structural fat of the developing brain. The fetal brain accumulates DHA at its highest rate during the 3rd trimester. When maternal DHA stores are low, that accumulation is limited. The 2020 U.S. Dietary Guidelines Advisory Committee confirmed this. Seafood intake during pregnancy is associated favorably with cognitive development and language outcomes in young children. And the FDA's advice to limit fish during pregnancy, however well-intentioned, inadvertently caused many women to avoid fish entirely. And that avoidance itself can cause harm. So the problem is not fish. The problem is which fish, from where, and how it was caught. So hold that thought for a second as we go through what follows. Every piece of information in this episode is designed to help you eat more fish. Better fish, not less. So what is actually in the can? Fish is beneficial. We've been through that. The omega-3 fatty acids, EPA and DHA support brain function, reduce inflammation, and are associated with lower cardiovascular risk. Selenium, iodine, vitamin D, B12. The nutritional value of fish is strongly supported. But fish is also the primary route through which most people are exposed to methylmercury, a neurotoxic heavy metal that accumulates in fatty tissues and is cleared from the body, but slowly. The dose depends almost entirely on which fish you choose. The classification comes directly from FDA monitoring data. At the top of the danger list, there's big eye tuna with mercury levels reaching the highest parts per million, And next there's albacore, sold as white canned tuna. And at the safe end, skipjack, sold as canned light or chunk-like tuna. That is a 3-to-1 ratio between albacore and skipjack. For a pregnant woman, a child, or anyone eating multiple times a week, that difference is clinically significant. So if you want the complete list with the precise mercury content, go see my show notes. Health Canada's guidance also reflects this. For white canned albacore tuna, up to 300 grams per week for pregnant women and nursing women, and up to 150 grams per week for children aged 5 to 11. For light or skipjack tuna, Health Canada places no specific weekly limit. It's considered safe enough that no cap is needed. By the way, you will always find my sources in the show notes. And if you want to go deeper, join my member space. You'll get the nuances that I cannot fit into a 15-minute episode, the juicy details I cannot reveal on air, and exclusive resources for members. It's free. I call it my crispy UNCUT bonus. Again, link is in the show notes. Now the label problem. Let's talk about what happens when the label is simply wrong. Oceana, the International Ocean Conservation Organization, conducted one of the largest seafood fraud investigation ever, testing more than 1,200 fish samples from retail outlets across 21 American states. 1/3 of all samples were mislabeled according to FDA guidelines. For tuna specifically, the mislabeling was 59%. A 2018 follow-up found that 1 in 5 fish on shelves not covered by the federal traceability program were still mislabeled. 1 in every 3 stores sold mislabeled seafood. This is not a small problem. That's widespread. So for the consumer making a health decision, choosing light tuna over white tuna to reduce mercury exposure, a 59% mislabeling rate means that decision is unreliable nearly half of the time. So you think you're buying skipjack, you may be buying albacore. You'll never know. So what do the certifications actually mean? What can you trust on the label? So the MSC Bluefish label, Marine Stewardship Council, is the most widely recognized seafood certification in the world. It certifies the ecological sustainability of a fishery, that the fish stock is healthy, that the fishing method does not cause lasting environmental harm, and that the product can be traced back through the supply chain. An MSC commissioned study found that fewer than 1% of labeled products were mislabeled compared to the 30% global average for the uncertified seafood. So on the specific question of species fraud, looking for the MSC label makes a difference. But the MSC does not certify labor conditions, animal welfare, or other concerns like that. And the industry pays the MSC to be certified. And that's a structural conflict of interest that critics have raised. In Canada, Raincoast Trading and Wild Planet have consistently topped Greenpeace Canada's sustainability rankings for their sourcing practices, fishing methods, and transparency. Both use pole-in-line methods. Both publish sourcing policies. And they are available at major retailers and cost a bit slightly more, but they're worth it. So that's only a few examples. If you want the complete list, go to my show notes. Now let's zoom in on the genetics. Not everyone handles omega-3 the same way. And the people who think they don't need fish because they eat enough flaxseed, or because they take a supplement, or because they're afraid of mercury, they may be exactly the people who need it the most. Let me explain. 3 genes. The first 2 are FADS1 and FADS2. These encode the enzymes your body uses to convert the short-chain omega-3 found in plants into the long-chain EPA and DHA your brain and heart actually uses. That conversion is not efficient in any human. In most people, it's less than 10% of plant ALA that becomes DHA. A meta-analysis published in 2026, covering nearly 500,000 people, confirmed this across 38 studies. So in people who carry reduced function variants of the FADS1 or FADS2, and that is roughly 30 to 40% of the population, the conversion rate drops by an additional 40 to 60%. So for these individuals, eating more flax seeds does not solve the problem. You are putting more substrate into a pipeline that is genetically narrower. The DHA is not getting made, and standard blood work will not catch it. Your cholesterol looks fine, your doctor says everything is normal, and your cells are quietly starving for the one fat your brain is built from. The only reliable source of preformed EPA and DHA, the forms your body can actually use without conversion, is fatty fish. Sardines, mackerel, herring, salmon, 2 servings a week. That bypasses the broken conversion pathway entirely. The third gene is ApoE4, and this one is connected to Alzheimer's disease. ApoE4 is the strongest known genetic risk factor for late onset Alzheimer's. Approximately 25% of the general population carries at least one copy of this gene. It affects how efficiently DHA is delivered to the brain and how quickly it is used up by the brain. ApoE4 carriers turn over DHA approximately 77% faster than non-carriers. That's a lot. They also respond significantly less to omega-3 supplements. Around 20 to 30% lower DHA response from a capsule than someone without this variant. The Alzheimer's Drug Discovery Foundation specifically recommends 2 to 4 servings of fatty fish per week for ApoE4 carriers, not supplement. They recommend food. Fish works best for these people. So let that sink in. You may be carrying a gene that makes consistent fatty fish consumption one of the best protective factors, and you're standing in the aisle reading about Mercury and putting the tuna back on the shelf. So knowing your FADS1, FADS2, and ApoE status matters. For some people, it has a major impact on their future health. Now, let's move on to ethics. A note on the human cost of your can. The largest survey of migrant fishing labor ever conducted in Southeast Asia was released by the International Labour Organization in 2026. The numbers are interesting. 1 in 8 migrant workers in the fishing and seafood industry were found to be working under conditions of forced labor. Among fishers specifically, the rate was 20%. So on longline tuna vessels, the kind that supply a significant portion of the global canned tuna market, the rate reached 24%. Migrant fishers worked an average of 94 hours per week. Half reported that their identity documents had been retained by their employer or captain. More than a quarter had sustained work-related injuries requiring medical treatment, and 61% of migrant fishers had gone into debt to finance their migration to the job. So they had been paying to enter conditions of forced labor. That is the human cost of your tuna can. And here's a paradox worth noting. A peer-reviewed study published in Science Advances traced forced labor conditions in Pacific tuna to vessels operating in Southeast Asia, Fiji, and across Thai and Taiwanese fleets. The researchers noted something striking. When they interviewed human trafficking experts, forced labor in seafood was described as widespread. But when they interviewed senior executives at seafood companies in the US, UK, and Australia, it was described as an isolated situation. That's interesting. 5 rules. They take 10 seconds to learn and a lifetime to benefit from. Rule 1. Eat the small fatty fish first. Sardines, mackerel, herring, and anchovies are the most nutritionally dense fish you can buy. 2 to 3 grams of EPA and DHA per grams. And they are the lowest in mercury because they're small. They're fast reproducing and low on the food chain. One serving of mackerel or sardines gives you full weekly omega-3 target in a single meal. These are also among the most affordable fish available. They're the fish that no one else wants to eat, right? So if you do nothing else from today's episodes, add 1 serving of small fatty fish to your week. Rule 2. Wild salmon, trout, and herring. They're your second best option. Around 1.5 to 2.5 grams of omega-3 per serving with very low mercury level. These are the fish that drove most of the positive cardiovascular and cognitive data, the pregnancy studies, the cardiovascular cohort studies. So aim for 1 to 2 servings per week across this group. Rule 3. Canned light tuna. Skipjack. That's a legitimate everyday protein. Low mercury, moderate omega-3, perfectly reasonable 2 to 3 times a week. The key word is light, not white, not albacore. Health Canada places no specific weekly limit on light tuna. Rule 4. Albacore and white tuna, maximum once a week. For the general population, 1 serving per week. For pregnant women, Health Canada allows up to 300 grams per week of albacore. 300 grams is pretty much. That's about 3 servings of fish. For children aged 5 to 11, up to 150 grams per week. Not 0. Once a week is fine for most people. Big eye tuna, swordfish, and shark, occasional foods only. Once a month at most. Not because fish is dangerous, but because these specific species concentrate mercury at the top of a very long food chain. The fish benefits data was not built on these species. It was built on the sardines and the salmon. Let's sum up. 2 servings of a small fatty fish per week covers your omega-3 needs, protects your heart, and if you're pregnant, gives your baby the DHA it needs during the trimester when it's developing fastest. The fish that are highest in omega-3 happen to be the same fish that are lowest in mercury. That's not a coincidence, and that's biology working in your favor. For my members this week, I've produced a quick guide to help you navigate through it all. Kind of a cheat sheet to help you remember everything we've discussed today. So get my crispy uncut bonus if you want to know more about it. The link is in the show notes. And you'll also find the Greenpeace Canada Tuna Ranking link and the Oceana Seafood Fraud Report. They're in the show notes too. They're free, they're updated, and they will change how you read tuna when you go back to your grocery. Moral of the story. We want to eat more real food. Fish is real food. The recommendation to eat it regularly is a good one. But buying it, well, requires a bit of knowledge. And the gap between what the packaging says and what is actually in the can, and what it took to get there, that is exactly the reason why I am making these podcasts. Thanks for listening, and see you next week. Keep the revolution going. Awareness is the first step to vote yourself into a healthy life.
Mama's in the kitchen, skillet on the flame. Papa's by her side, calling out my name. A little coffee brewing, aroma in the air. In our family home, there's love everywhere. 3 little children tucked into their beds. 2 feeling poorly, thoughts fill my head. Doctor says a remedy is what they need. Mama's special shortening bread will plant the seed. Oh, Mama and Papa, you always know the way. With shortening bread and laughter, you brighten every day. Through trials and tribulations, love is what you spread.